and we have seen some of the examples for the class, and we have created some properties in the class. We have created some methods, and it is accepting some parameters as well. And we have seen how to create a constructor, and we have seen how to create the object for this class. Then we have seen what are data types in C#. The integer is having 4 bytes long, is taking 8 bytes, and float, double, bool, character, and string. So these are the data types yesterday we have seen. So far, if you have any doubts, so please let me know so we can clear this before the session. I'll wait for a couple of minutes. If you have any questions, just raise it. Any questions, guys, from the previous sessions? No questions? You can text or you can just raise your voice if you have any questions. Okay, so no response from you guys. So let's move to the next topic, which is control statements. So in .NET, in C#, we will have the control statements such as if statement, switch statement, and we will be using while, we'll be using for each, try and catch finally. So these are all the control statements in C# that we have. Let us see some examples. So if you guys are already aware in JavaScript, we have the same kind of if statement, switch condition, switch loops, and while loops, for loop. So let's see some examples on that. So let's open the console application yesterday we have created. In this console application, let us create one more class. So right click on the solution and add a class, control statements. Yeah, so we have our class now. So let's see for the if condition. So if condition in C# will take the so we'll start with the if statement, and inside the parentheses we'll pass the variable whether it's a true or false. So based on the condition, it will just go to the true condition. If not, it will go to the else condition. So this is what if and else should be, the syntax for this one. So to write the example, we have to create a method in this class. So let us say public integer is even or odd. So let's find out whether this number is an even or odd number from this method. So let us take an input parameter with integer, and let's provide a number. So any one of you has idea how to calculate the integer? So find out the number is integer or not, like even or odd. You guys are aware of this even or odd? You can just raise your voice, or you can just text on the chat window also. I can see that example. Okay, so let's proceed. So to find out the whether this number is, yeah, okay, I got some response. Cool. So number percentage by 2 double equals 0. So what does this condition will do? So what is the use of the percentile symbol? So this percentile symbol will give you the reminder of the number, correct? So let us say we have if condition. Inside the if condition, let us write this number percentile by 2 is it is equals, if it is equals 0, then what? It is an even number, right?
Even.
Yeah, correct. So let's return this method as Boolean. So we can return if it is true, we can return false if it is false. So return true if I want, if it is an even number. In the else condition, we can make it return false. Correct. So we have our method ready now. So to call this method, let's go to the program class. Yeah, so in the program class, let us comment all this stuff here. So to comment the code in C#, we will just use double slash. As we have seen in the JavaScript, to how to comment that code, we have to use the double slash. So in the same way, we have the slash and the star for multiple line comments. So this is for multi-line commenting, this is for single line commenting. So similar way, I have commented the code, and let us write some console window. So let's print some message in the console window that we want to enter some number from the console window. Let us write something, enter a number, and now I have to provide some input from the console window. So to take input from the console window, we have to use a method called console.read or read line. So we have a method called read or read line to get the input from the console window. Let us use the read line method. So inside this, if you see this read line method will give you the string return type. So for that, we will take a string and the number equals console.writeLine. So when you run this program, the console window will ask you to render a number, and we have to enter some number. So that number will be held by this variable. Now let us convert this number, this string integer, into a number type. So for that, what we have to do is, to convert a string into an integer, we have to use convert. Convert is a predefined class from the system.convert assembly. That means it is a package from the using system. From this using system package, this is an assembly, and from this package we have got this convert class, and inside that we have the several methods. So to convert the variables, so if you see, we have 2 in 32 to convert a string, to convert the object into in 32. Let us see that method. Yeah, if you see this, we have 19 overload of these methods. So we can pass the object type, we can pass the string type to this to convert that to integer. We can pass double value, we can pass boolean value, any kind of value we can pass into this one. So similarly, we are passing the string value. So now what will happen is, the string number, the number what we enter in the console window, so we have to enter a number actually, that will be taken into the string, and that number we are converting into the integer. Now we have our method which is there in the control statements. So let us take, what is that method, is, even, or odd. So before that, we have to create an object for the control statements. Let's create an object for the control statements. Control statements, and object name is control statements equals new control statements. So inside that, so within this object, we have the method called is, even, or odd, right? So we have to pass the number for this method. So this is our number. Let's move this to the above line. Integer, our number equals this number, and this number we are passing it as parameter for this method. You see, so when I execute this program, the console will enter some message like enter a number, and we will enter the number. It will be converted into a integer by using convert.int32, and we are creating an object for the control statements class, and we are calling this method is, even, or odd, and we are passing this number to that method. And inside the number, we are calculating whether this number is even or odd. So if it is true, we'll get the true. If it is false, we will get the true or false. So let us print some message there in the console window, whether it's a true or false. So let us go to, let's print some message in the console window. console.write line. Inside that, let us print some. This is the number given, which is our number, is. So now we will decide whether it's an even or odd, right? So now here it should display whether it's an even or odd. Okay, so for now, let us print some whether it is true or false. So from here, this method will be returning you boolean variable. So that we will store that here. Bool is even is equal to. So this variable will hold whether it's even or odd. So it will get true or false. Let us run this program first. Now, if you see, so it is entering some message, enter a number. Let's provide some number called 2. See, the number given is 2 is true. That means it is saying it is a integer number. Let us close the window again and let's run it again. Now let us provide some other number. Let's say 3. See, it is giving us false. So in order to display the relevant message, whether it's a true or false, again we can use some if conditions here. Let us write some if condition, and we have to pass is even inside that. So for that, so if condition, inside the if condition, if you are writing only one statement, then there is no required, then there is no need to give the flower bracket open and close. It is only one statement, there is no need to open and close. If you have multiple statements, then you have to write the flower brackets open and close inside that. So now we will remove this and we will print that. If it is even, we are printing it is an even. If it is odd, in the else condition, we will display. Here also we don't need this brackets because we are displaying only one statement. The number is odd. Let's run this. So let's enter 3. The number is odd. Let's close and run it again. Let's provide some 6. The number is even. Cool, right? So we have seen the if condition with for comparing whether it's an even or odd inside this control statements, and to verify whether it's even or odd, we are using this condition, the number and the percentile by 2, which will give the reminder of this one. And if it is 0, it is an even number. If it is 1, it will be odd number, right? Clear, guys? So this is what the basic if and else condition. Let's go for the next statement, which is switch condition. So let's get one more method for this one. Public, let's say void. Any example for you to show some switch condition, like let us check that. Check a number. Let us pass one more number here as an input. And inside this, we will write some switch statement. So switch statement, the syntax is like this. So inside the switch condition, we have to pass the value, and we have to open a flower brackets for this one. You see the syntax. The switch will take an integer value or any kind of value. It can be an integer, it can be string, it can be character, anything. So for this, inside the case, we have to check the condition whether this value is 0 or 1 or something. So based on the value you provided, the type you are providing here, so it will take that value and it will check the case and it will be executing this relevant statements. And for every case, we have to end the case with a break statement. So every case we start with the case keyword, and this is the case value which we want to check with the number. And if it is matching with that number which we have passed here, then it will execute this statement and it will end with this case by using this break statement. So similarly, we can have multiple case statements in this one. And at the end of the case, we can have a default statement if nothing is matching here. So let's see some example, and we will pass our number here. Let's write some cases here. If it is 0, let us print that, let us return something that this is 0. And let's break this one. So we have to end this case by using the break statement. So let's modify this void return type to string. Instead of having here return type, we will store some variable here. Let us say it is a string. The result of this one, result variable is equal to. So in order to initialize the string with a empty value, so we have a string method. So if you see this string dot empty, so this is a standard method to initialize a string integer, the string variable with an empty value. So instead of providing the double quotes as an empty, so we have a standard method here as an empty method. So we can use that to initialize this string variable to an empty value. So let us store this value inside this one. Result equals, this is 0, and outside the switch condition, let us return this value. Result. Cool. So let's write few more conditions here. So if it is 1, I want to return it as this is 1. If it is 2, let us print that it is 2. 3. That's enough. So at the end of the switch statement, let us put some default condition. So it will start with the default keyword, default, and then we will have the semicolon here, and result, we will store it as no number is matching. And we have to end the default case also by using the break statement. Okay, so we have our method ready here. So let us check this number and let us call this method from this program class. So we have already object for the control statements. So we can reuse that same object and we will call that one. So before that, let us enter some other number, or we can reuse the same number which we have already. Control statements that dot. So we have the check number. Let's pass this number to inside this one. Number. And so once this method is executing, we'll get the output in the form of string, right? So we will store that string inside a string variable as a result, and let us display that message inside this console.writeLine method. So inside the writeLine, we can just pass the variable also, or we can write a simple text. Okay, let us run this program. Let us enter some number. Let us enter this 3. See, so the number is an odd number, and this is number 3. So when I enter this number, it is passing this number to this method, and we are checking the switch statement inside this one. And so inside that we have a case possible with this 3 number. So that's why it is matching with this one, and it is executing this is 3. Let us pass a number which is not there in this cases, then it will execute that there is no number in this one. Let's pass some 100. No number is matching with the case. Clear? Any questions, guys? Okay, cool. So far we have seen whether how to use the if conditions and how to use the switch statement. So let's go for for loop and while loops also. Let us write some. So let's write some example inside the program class itself. So let's say we already have entering some number inside the console window, and we want to iterate the numbers, the less than the like below the numbers. Let's say the for writing for loop, we have to use the for as a keyword, and inside that we will pass the initializer of this one. Let us initialize it with 0. Someone, if you're not speaking, please be on mute, guys. I'm getting some noise from somewhere. I'm getting some noise. If you guys not speaking, please be on mute. Cool. So to have the for loop, this is the syntax for the for loop. So we have to pass the initializer, and then we have to pass the condition, and we have to pass the iterator. So for initializer, we can take it is an integer. It can be starting with 0 or any number, and inside the condition we have to pass whether it's a equal to 0 or something like the conditions, and then we have to increment that value or decrement that value. And inside that for loop, we can write some statements inside that. So let us start with 0, and let's write some condition. This number is greater than 0, and number minus minus. Index, let us take index is equals 0. If index is less than our number, let us increase this index. Okay, cool. So I have given the wrong variable here. It is a number. Okay. So let's print some message in the console window. Console dot write line, and display that variable. So we will display the index. So what we are trying to do inside this for loop is, so we are initializing index with the 0, and we are just checking this what are the number we are entering in the console window, and if it is the index is less than this number, just display that number and stop when it is reaching that number. Let us enter some 7 as a number. Sorry, index must be incrementing. Okay, so I have entered 7, so that's why it is starting with 0 and it is displaying up to 7 number. Let's enter some other value, 10, it will display up to 10. Cool. So what are the number we are entering inside the console window? So we are writing condition with that number and checking whether this number is less than the 0, and 0 will be incrementing from this statement. So it will start from here, index equal to 0, and it will check the condition here. So 0 less than or equal to 10, and then it will just display that statement, and the number will be 0 first time. And then next it will go to index plus plus. Next it will go to the incrementing or decrementing here iterator. So then it will increase the value, and again it will check the statement. Condition is true or false. If it is true, again it will go to this statement, and then it will execute the statement. So similarly, it will keep on looping these statements until the condition becomes false. Clear? So let's display the same example by using the while loop also. Let us comment this code. So the while loop will be like this. The syntax of the while loop will be, so it will start with the while keyword, and inside the while we have to pass the condition, and inside that flower brackets we have to write some statements. So there is a difference between while and for loop, right? So in the while condition, in the while statement, we have to increment the variable within the while loop. But in the for loop, so inside the syntax itself, it is asking to provide whether to increase or decrease the value. But in the while, we have to increment or decrement the value inside the statements itself, inside the floor brackets. So similarly, do while also, do while is syntax is like this. It will start with the do and then the flower brackets. So and then the statements will be executing for the first time. The do while will be executing the statements. At the end of the do while, there will be the while condition will be checking here. So there is a difference between while and do while is like, so while will be checking the condition from the beginning onwards. That means from the first iteration onwards, the while will be checking its condition. But do while will not check the condition for the first iteration, and then it will check the condition from the second iteration, because the do will be first do its job for the first time, and then it will do the while condition. So that's why it is named as do while. So first it will do, then it will check the condition, while condition. So that's why the first condition will be always, it will be always executing in the do while. Similarly, we have a for each loop in the C#. That means instead of having the indexes here, so we can just iterate all the values from the array straight away here using the for each loop, and we can display that values in the statements. Let's see some examples here. Let us go to while loop. The same condition will pass. So for while loop, we have to initialize the variable before the while loop as an int index equals 0, and inside this one, index is less than or equals the number. Let us print the number again. So then we will increase the value. Let us execute this one. Yeah, so let's enter term 10. See, the same output is printing now by using the while loop. So how it is executing? So we have initialized the same number, but difference is in the for loop we have the initializer within the for loop syntax, but here in the while loop we have to initialize the value before the while loop, and the condition will be placed here between this for loop syntax itself. But here the while condition will be going inside the while condition here in the while loop, and the incrementing or decrement will be here in the syntax, but here we have to do within the while statements. This is about while loop. Let's see one more special loop called for each. So before that, let us initialize some array. So let's discuss something about array. So arrays will be declared in C# by using the syntax. So we have to declare the type of the array, and we have to give the square brackets. Then we have to pass the variable. Let us say our integer array equals, then we can simply initialize the values within the square brackets. Let's say we want 1, 2, 3, 4. So let me check the syntax once. let's forget about this. Let's go for the for each loop. So for each loop, we have to pass some array. Let's take some array using var variable, where array is equals to 1, 2, 3. Okay, so let's assume we have some array here. So we will iterate this one inside the for each loop. So the syntax of the for each loop is like this. So for each will take the data type and then the identifier and then in will be there. So here let us see, integer is our type, and integer, let us say number or result in array. So this is what syntax of the for each loop. So this is the array we have to pass here, and this is the data type which is the array data type. So if you're taking string array, then we have to take the string type. If you're taking something other than integer, we have to pass that one, the data type here. And this is the in which will be taking iteration of these values until the array has the number of incrementing. So here in the for each loop, so incrementing of the value will be taken care by the for each loop itself. So there is no need to increment the value from outside, and there is no need to initialize the value also. So what are the variable we have given here? So it will take that value. The first value will be going to this condition, to this result, and then it will display that value. Then it will increment the value automatically, and then the 2 will be given to this number again. So 2 will be displayed, and then 3 will be iterating always. And then once this array is finished, then the for each loop will be breaked. Let's display some message in the console window. Let's run the program. So you see here. So we have given the array of 3 numbers, and then it is iterating all the numbers in the for each loop, and it is displaying the numbers within the console tab, right? So this is how the for each loop will be used in C#. Okay, so these are the statements. These are the control statements in the C#. So we have seen the if statement how to use, and we have seen while loop. We have seen switch statement. We have seen the for each loop also. Any questions so far? Any questions, guys? Okay, so let us play something with these arrays also here. Any live example for this? You want me to give some live example for these loops or switch statements or if condition or else condition? What, in which one you want a live example? So let's go some live example in the sense, but it will be more complex for you. Let me remove this for each example here. So in real time, what we will do is we will just we will not have such kind of static arrays, right? So in that case, we will get some data from the database. So that is in terms of records. Yeah. So in terms of records, we'll get some data from the database. Then that data we will store in the list. So list is a kind of list is a data type which will store the list of variables of a specific type. Let's say we have car, and I'm creating some list of cars. So the syntax is like this. So syntax will be similar to the creating of object. So before that, we'll be having the list keyword, and then this inside this angular brackets we'll pass the what is the type of the list. So this is the type of the list, and this is the variable, and we have to end this by using parentheses. So let's say, so now we will have some cars. Let's say we have some cars. So we will initialize this list with some cars. Let's say we have the car. So we have two constructors. We will use one of the constructor now. Name as Benj, color is blue. Come on. So we will separate the list items by using comma. We are getting a few more items in this one. Benz, trees, hello. Any car model you know?
Aston Martin.
So,
Lamborghini, sir.
okay. So let's say we have three type of cars that we are that are getting some database. So before the getting this list as a static one, so we will get this list from the database by connecting with ADO.NET. So in the further examples, we will see so how to connect with the database by using ADO.NET. It will be here. Yeah. So by using ADO.NET, we'll be connecting with the database, and then we'll get the data. That data we will be storing inside this list. So then that list we will be containing, and then we have to iterate that list inside the for each loop. Then we will display that list in a table format actually. But right now we are displaying, we are using the console application, so we will be not able to seeing the list kind of data. So if we have any ASP.NET application, then we can display this data in terms of table. If you see in the HTML example, so let's iterate this list again here. So we are iterating the list of cars. So that's why we are taking again here the type as car. So car is our type now. So let us initialize this variable with car inside in the LST cars. Now we can display the list of example list of the cars using console.writeline. Now see car.name, then hyphen car.color. So there is nothing difference between real time and the practice time. Like if you take the real time, we'll get the data from databases. If you're just practicing on your own, just we will create some static kind of list. That's it. So in real time, we will use this for each to display the data in a table format. If you are using some ASP.NET application or Windows application anywhere, let's run this example. Okay, so see, we are iterating with this the list of cars here. So similarly, we will iterate the list of the data which we get from the database by using ADO.NET. We will get the data from the database, and then that data we will iterate inside the for each loop, and that data we can display in the browser or we can display in the Windows application. Did I clear your example or your question? Did I answer your question, Avinash? There is nothing difference between the real time and the context time.
Yes, sir, got it.
Sorry.
Yes, sir.
Hello. Someone is speaking, but their voice is breaking actually. I'm not able to hear that voice clearly. Avinash, is your question got cleared?
Yes, sir, got it, sir.
Okay, cool. So we have seen the control statements: if condition, switch, while, for each, and we're not discussing about try and catch because we have to. That is a vast topic again. Yeah. So if you don't have any questions, so we can jump into OOPS concepts. But to take a session on the OOPS concept, it will take at least 3-4 sessions, but we cannot cover all the topics inside this in this session. So I'll just give an overview of the OOPS concepts. Then we will jump into ADO.NET. Then we can interact with the database and we can get some data. We can display that. Any questions from the previous session? If you have any questions, just let me know. Otherwise, we will jump into OOPS concepts. Any questions, guys? From the switch statements or from the control statements or the data types, or from the previous slides also you can ask me. So far we have covered these topics: introduction and type of MS.NET applications, how to see the code compilation, what is CLR, what is class, method and objects, what are data types, what are the control statements. So if you don't have any questions, we'll just move to the next topic: OOPS concepts. We'll wait for 1 more minute. If you have any questions, just type something here. Otherwise, just type it as no. We'll wait for a couple of minutes. If you have any questions, no doubts. Anirudh, you have just joined and you have no questions. Okay, so let's move to the next topic: OOPS concepts. So what is an OOPS concept? So OOPS concept is a common concept between all the programming languages. If you take Java or if you take .NET, if you take JavaScript also, we have the OOPS concepts. But in JavaScript, we will not be using all the OOPS concepts because it is not possible to use all the OOPS concepts in the JavaScript. But if you take the JavaScript, we can use, in an advanced JavaScript, we can use inheritance, we can do polymorphism. That means we can perform overriding, but we cannot perform overloading in JavaScript. This is with respect to JavaScript I'm saying. So in JavaScript, we can perform inheritance, we can perform overriding, we can perform encapsulation, we can perform even abstraction also. So the languages which are extending this JavaScript, like AngularJS or Angular frameworks or any kind of frameworks that is extending this JavaScript, we can use all these kind of OOPS concepts inside that also. So OOPS are similar concepts within across all the languages. So if you take C#, because it's a server language, so all the OOPS concepts will be supported by the C#. So what are the OOPS concepts? That means, so if you see these examples, we have created some classes, we have created some properties inside the class, and we are creating some objects. So if you see, if you follow these examples, we have already used some of the OOPS concepts here. That means, so the OOPS concepts will be starting with class and the object. So those are the basic things in the OOPS concepts, like class, what is the class, what is the object. So we have already used creating classes, and we have already created some objects for the classes. So the basic of the OOPS concept we have already covered in the examples. And these are the main OOPS concepts, which is an encapsulation, inheritance, polymorphism, and abstraction. So it is a collection of related objects communicating with each other. That means one object will be communicating with the other object, exchanging messages. That means we will get some message from the other object to other object. That means we'll be communicating like this. If you see in the control statements, we have some methods, right? And we are passing some message from this method to the program method, like this. So we are exchanging some data between these methods. That's what called the exchanging the data with each other in a controlled environment as per the rules of the business. As per the rules in the sense, so we have to obey all the rules of the OOPS concepts. That means we obeying in the sense. So here, if you see, it is returning some string value. So we cannot take the double or float or integer value for this one. So that's what the rules means. So we have to obey all the rules of the OOPS concepts, and we have to use them properly. And these are the these are the four OOPS concepts we have, which is encapsulation, inheritance, polymorphism, and abstraction. Let's go for the encapsulation. So in C#, encapsulation is nothing but binding of data and behavior. That means functionality of an object which in a secured and controlled environment is called encapsulation. That means, see, so these are the advantages of the encapsulation. That means data hiding or abstraction, implementing the abstraction, making the classes simpler to use, loosely coupling. So if you see this encapsulation, there is a similarity between encapsulation and the abstraction. Let us go to this here. Yeah. So abstraction and encapsulation both will be looking similar actually, but abstraction is nothing but we'll be achieving abstraction by using abstract classes. So we have to achieve abstraction by using abstract classes, whereas encapsulation we have to achieve by using private variables. That means we have to achieve the encapsulation by using access modifiers, such as in .NET we have some access modifiers such as public, private, protected, and we have a special access modifier here for internal and protected internal. So let's see briefly what this can do. So public is nothing but it will be exposing for all the projects. That means it will be exposed publicly. So if you write a class with a public, or if you write a method with a public access modifier, then that class or that variable or that method will be exposed all over the projects. That means whenever you use any other project, we create other project, and if you try to use that class inside that project, then it will be exposed in that classes also. The private will be within the class, or it can be within the project. That means private will have some security. That means whenever you provide a private for a variable or a method, so that will be keeping within that class. Let us say if you go to control statements, inside this class, let us declare some variable with private car type, or let's take it a string type, car type equals, let us initialize some value here. Okay, so inside the control statements, okay, let us move this from here to car. So this will make sense. Yeah, so we already have some properties here inside the car as a color, name, cost, and let us say we have also car type. So but I gave this variable access modifier as private. So now we will go to we'll go to the program class and let us create a car object here. Object for the class, car object, car1 equals new car. Now, if you see, if I press car1 dot, we can see color, cost, and name as exposable. But if you see that car type is not exposable here as a property here, because the car type which we have declared is a private number. That's why it is not exposed out of the class. But within the methods of the within the methods inside this car class, we can use this method, this type. If you see this car type, we can use inside this class itself, but it will not be exposed outside the class. That's what the private does actually. So if you make it public again, and so it will be exposed out of the class also. Now if you just press current dot, so now see the car type is also exposing now as a field. See, this is a field, this is not a property. That's why it is showing some other icon here. This is a field, this is not a property. So to make that field as a property, we have to write get and set values also. So in order to make it as a property, so now we are converting from the field to the property by using get and set. The field will become the variable. Field will become the property now. So let's go to the program and let's see now the car type is showing the property icon now. So this is the property icon, and previously we have seen the field icon also. So that's the example for private and public. And protected will be used whenever you want to expose the class variables or the methods only for the child of its one. So let us say we have, so let's say we have already a car example here, car class here. So inside it, we will write some method with protected, access modifier protected, and let us say void get car. Okay, so this is the method which is written some void, only void, and I have given it as protected. So let's say go to the program class and let's try to access that method here, car1 dot. See, now there is no method with get car type, get car. See, now we're not able to see this get car method inside this program method. Why? Because that method is having protected access modifier. That means, so whenever you extend this car in any of the other classes, then only we can use that method. So to extend that car, that means we are doing inheritance now. So in order to inherit this car class for the control statements, let us say, then we have to use a semicolon, colon, then we have to use the car. So now what we are doing is we are inheriting the car class for the control statements. Now just if you try to access that method now, car type is available now, get car is available now. See, so this method will be only available whenever you are extending a class. That means whenever you have to inherit this car class, so then only this method will be available. That means the children of the parent class. So let's take this is the parent class. So if you have any protected members or protected methods in the parent class, and those methods will be only available within its child classes. So this is the child class for the car. So only those methods and properties will be available within its child class. Otherwise, you cannot see these methods outside the other classes. Clear? So this is what the protected will do. And internal is like simply if you take the class example, this car. So every class in C# will be having by default internal. So internal is a default access modifier for the class in C#. That means internal is nothing but if you give internal for a class for before the class, this class will be used only within this project. And if you create one more project within this solution, and if you try to import this class, this car class into that project, then you will not be able to use it because this is having internal. That means it will be only applicable for this project. It will not be exposed out of this project. So if you give the public access modifier for the class, it will be also publicly shown for the other projects also. So by default, class will be having internal access modifier. So if you modify that to internal also, there will be no difference between, from the previous examples we have created car edits here, so it will not show any effect here. See, there is no effect here because it is still in the same project. So if you go out of this project, that car will be not available. So that's what the internal will do. And we have one more special type called protected and internal. So this both will be combined together and it will be used like, so if I want to this car to be exposable only within this project, and also it should be applicable only for its children. So then I can give, before internal, we can provide some protected internal. Now see. Okay, no, fine. So this will be, yeah. So whenever you give that protected internal access modifier, so that will be used within the project as well as only for the child of the parent classes. That's what. So public is for all. It will be visible within the project. It will be useful out of the project also. And private will be useful only within that class. It will not be exposed out of that class. If you give protected, it will be used only for the child classes. And if you use internal, this will be used within the current project. If you use protected and internal both together, then that will be used only within the project and also for the child classes. So here we have seen some of the OOPS concepts also, like we have implemented some inheritance here. So this is what inheritance we are doing. We are inheriting the car, and car is our base class, and this is our child class now. So to inherit more classes now, we can just put some comma and we can add one more class here. So we can extend more classes to one of the class. Yeah, so we have seen some example for encapsulation. So difference between encapsulation and abstraction is simply one thing. So encapsulation will be achieving by using this access modifier, whereas abstraction we have to achieve with abstract keywords. So here is the example. So let us say for creating abstract class, we have to use abstract before the class. So abstract class, inside the abstract class, we can write some methods, or we can just initialize, we can just declare some methods. And when you have a abstract class, that class should be inherited for in the child classes. Then we have to implement these methods like an interface. So let's say we have an area as a method within the shape, which is an abstract class, and this area method should be implemented whenever you are inheriting the parent abstract class within a class. And this method is getting implemented by using override keyword. That means you have to implement this method, the abstract method, by using override keyword. Then you can write some logic inside this method, and you can call this method in outside this class. So see, this is what the abstract will do. So abstract class will have the abstract keyword before the class, and for the abstract methods we have to use the public and abstract and the return type, the method name, and we have to close the method by using semicolon here itself. So abstract methods will not have any body, whereas the inside the abstract class we can write concrete methods also. That means the methods with some implementation also we can do inside the abstract class, and we can also have abstract methods also. So abstract class can contain abstract methods as well as concrete methods. That means which can have some implementation, that is called concrete, and which will not have any implementation, which is called abstract method. So if we have any abstract methods inside the abstract class, that must be overridden within the child class. Let's copy and see this example here. Let's create a class, one more, add a class shape. Let me clear this. So something is missing here using, okay. Yeah, so if you see this example, we have an abstract class, which is starting with abstract keyword, and inside that we have an abstract method. So this method you have to override within the child class by using override keyword. So this is how we will do overriding. That means we are covering also polymorphism here. So polymorphism is nothing but showing multiple forms. So poly is nothing but many. Morphism is nothing but form. So polymorphism means it is nothing but many forms. So when you have an object and it will be having multiple forms, that is called as polymorphism object. So that means, so when you create overloading or overriding, so both will come under polymorphism. So object in different forms, and in each form it exhibits the same functionality but implemented in different ways. That means we will do either with overriding or we will do either with overloading. That's what the polymorphism. So here we are already doing the overriding. That is, we are already covering some polymorphism. And if we want to have overloading also, then we can initialize one more method by having different parameters inside this one. Now see, there is a difference between these two methods. So we have an area method without any parameters, and we have one more area method with some parameters. So this is called overloading. We are just overloading with an extra parameters for the same method name. So overloading means we will have the same method name, we can have the same return type, and we have to change the signature of the method by adding some more parameters inside this method. So here see, now it is showing some error because we are not implementing this abstract method. That's why it is showing some error. So in order to implement that method also, we have to write again public override. We have to override that method integer as return type, because we have given as integer here. We have to provide the integer here also. And area, it's asking you to provide some integer here. This is our parameter we have given here. So this is how we will implement the abstract methods. And inside the abstract class, as I said, we can also have some concrete methods also. Let us say we can implement some other method called integer get area or get shape, and we can write some logic also here, and we can execute some statements here. Yeah, so this is what the abstract class will do. So inside the abstract class, we can have abstract methods as well as we can have some concrete methods also. This is called concrete method, which will have the body, but abstract methods will not have the body. And when you extend this, when you're trying to inherit this abstract class, we have to implement all the abstract methods which you have declared inside the abstract class. That's why otherwise it will show some errors here. So here we have covered the polymorphism, and we have covered the inheritance also, like deriving the base class inside derived class, it's called inheritance. And for the abstract class, for the abstraction, we are using abstraction. We are using abstract. So here is example for the abstraction by using abstract classes, and here is the polymorphism by using an inheriting example we have here. So please go through this material so we can play with the examples more. Any questions so far? Any questions so far? So if you are from CSC background or IT background, you'll be already available. You'll be already having some knowledge on OOPS concepts, I hope. If not, if you have any questions, just raise your hand. You can ask some questions. I can clear the doubts. But we don't have much time, so I cannot cover much examples in these sessions of the OOPS concepts. Otherwise, to take OOPS concept examples, it will take much time also. And for complete C#, to learn C# completely, it will easily take 20 days. Usually we'll teach for 20 days on a regular basis. To cover all these concepts in just 2 hours of time, it is not possible. So I'm just giving you some basic idea. Will we cover linked list also? No, we're not covering lists here. So as is, so I already have shown some example for the list here. Just a basic example I have shown how to use a list here. We don't have much time to cover all the topics here. That's why I'm giving you some basic topics only. If we start discussing about list, there is it's again a vast topic. So it will again simply take 1.5 hours to show you all examples clearly and explain everything. So I have shown you some generic list. These is called as generic list. Like we are specifying some type for the list, that's called the generic list here. We have covered some examples of the arrays and list also. Okay, so if you don't have any questions, we'll move for the next topic, which is ADO.NET. So this is the ADO.NET is a main part of the .NET application where we will connect with the database by using this ADO.NET. So ADO.NET full form is ActiveX Data Object. So this is the middleware. So this is the adapter between your backend database and the front-end .NET application. So let us say we have the .NET application. Let us say we have some databases like SQL Server, or we have some MySQL, we have some Oracle, Mongo, MongoDB, like this, Postgre. Similarly, we have many kind of databases like this. So to connect all these databases by using ADO.NET, we have several service providers for this one. So let us say we have the .NET application. So in between this database and .NET application, we need some adapter between these two actually. So to connect this database and the .NET application, we need an adapter which is called as ADO.NET. So it will work like an adapter between these two, and it will connect these two, and it will pass. It will exchange the data between these applications. So we can insert the data, we can get the data, we can update the data, we can remove the data, we can perform all the statements of the SQLs, all the statements of the databases, like select statement, we can update, we can use some update statements, delete, everything. So this works like an adapter between the database and your application. Let us see what is ADO.NET. So ADO.NET is a set of classes. Yeah. So ADO is a set of classes. That means, so ADO.NET is already there within the .NET framework. That means it's already providing with some of the predefined classes to interact with the database. So interact with some data source, we have to create some database within the SQL Server, or we have to create some DB within the OLEDB or Oracle DB, whatever it is. So we have to first install that database in your local system, and you have to create some database inside that. So ADO is an acronym for ActiveX Data Object. It allows us to connect the underlying data or databases. It has classes and methods to retrieve and manipulate the data. That means we can perform insert operation, we can perform update operation, we can perform delete operation. So all these kind of operations we can perform by using this ADO.NET. And these are the following applications where we can use ADO.NET. So in ASP we can use, in console also we can use, in Windows application also we can use. So in any of the application we can just use this ADO.NET examples. Let us see how the architecture is going on. So this is the ADO.NET which will stand in between the database and your application. So your application can be web application, or it can be Windows application, it can be console, it can be any kind of application. But on database also, you can use SQL Server, you can use Oracle, you can use OLEDB, you can use ODBC, any kind of database you can use. So in between your application and databases, this ADO.NET will stand in between this, and it will be communicating connecting between these two things. So these are the service providers that is already given within the .NET framework. So we have SQL client is a predefined class that is there in the using system.data.sql client. So if you see some of the usings here, as is shown, these are the packages that will be given by the framework. So if I want to use SQL client, then I have to use using system.data. Inside this, we can see all the kind of service providers, SQL client, SQL, OLEDB, ODBC. So these are all the different databases we can connect using this AOD.NET. If you want to add, if you want to use one more database, you have to just install some other package, that database related package, and you can use that also by using this AOD.NET. And here are the few command instructions that we have to follow. Let us see some example. First, we have to implement the connection. First, we have to create a connection, and then we have to pass a connection to some command. So the command can be select command, or command can be insert command, command can be delete command. So everything, anything you can do. So when you perform that operation, it will just return the data. It can be whether if you are performing select command, it will get the data. If you are performing some insert command, it will just throw your data inside database. And after the database, after the getting data, you can collect that data using data set class. Let's see some example, simple example. Let me create one other class. I'm creating a class called employee DB. So now in SQL, in .NET application, if you have some errors or if you're missing some packages, you can simply just use control dot command and you can get that package. And if you click enter, you just add that package here. So what is missing here is, okay, this code must go inside a method. Let me remove this method. Let's create a method with public void get employees. Yeah, let's copy and paste inside this one. So we have some errors here. So if you are missing any packages, we can just use control dot together, then it will show what is the missing package here. So we're missing using statement is a system.data.sql client. So if I click on this one, it will just add that one inside. Now it is missing some command type, missing control.dot, it is missing, it is using, it is from system.data. So we have to enter that one, it will be adding that also. Yeah, cool. So let me clean up this one. We don't need these things. Yeah, so this is the basic format of the ADO.NET syntax. So first thing is we have to open a SQL connection, and this is the SQL connection which is coming from the data.sql client. Inside this we have the SQL connection. So first thing is we have to start the connection, and inside the connection we have to pass the connection string. So connection string will be having the which database we want to use, which server you want to use, which database you have to connect with, and what is the username and password for the database. So here we have to provide these credentials, and after that we have, so once you pass the connection string inside this SQL connection, we will get the connection, and within the SQL command we have to pass this connection along with this command, so that it will execute this command, select command on this database. Then it will get some data. Now to get the data, we have to first open the connection, and then we have to close the connection at the end of our method. Then To get the data, we have some methods inside this command. So if you see this SQL command, this is the command object. So if you just press dot after the command, we have some methods here. So to get the data, complete data, we can use execute reader. And if you want to get some, yeah, here are the methods which we have to update a data. Like if you want to insert data or if you want to delete data, then we have to use execute non-query. If you have to read the data by using select statement, then we have to use execute reader. If you want to get only one variable from the database, then we have to use execute scalar. So likewise, we have some other methods by default given by this client. So right now we want to get all the data from that database. That's why we're using execute reader method. Now this will get the data in terms of SQL iterator. Now this data we are trying to while loop here. It is open the database. So I have installed already SQL Server. If you want to install SQL Server, just go to the Google, and SQL Server is also at free. You can install the community version at free of cost. SQL Server 2019 is the latest version now. So Microsoft is providing its download link here. Yeah. So here you can simply download the trial version and you can play with that. If you have any organization support, then you can install the enterprise versions. Otherwise, you can play with the trial versions. Yeah. So these are, we can install the database, and let me open this database. It is opening now. Yeah, it's open. So this is the SQL Server will look like. So here we have to pass which database server type we are passing as database engine, and the server name is my local machine name, and this is my login ID and the password here. So here we can use authentication type as Windows authentication, or we can just connect with the cloud credentials. So right now we are using server authentication. That means we have to pass login and password both. Let me connect with the database. Yeah, so I'm able to connect with the database, and let me expand this databases. If you see this, I have already employed DB as a database, and I have created some table called employee. Let's see what are the employees we have inside this one. So if you see this, it is connecting with the employee DB database. And to get the data from the employee table, we have to use select command, select star from employee. And to execute this one, we can just click on execute to get all the data. Yeah, so here we see we have some 4 records in this database. So we will get these records inside this employee DB class. So for that, we have to pass the server name. So if I just click on connect and database engine, it is giving me the server name. So I'll replace the server name here, and the database name is employee DB, and my username is ESA, and my password is, yeah. So this is my select command I have already executed here. So it is giving some data, right? 5 records or 4 records it is giving. So we have everything ready here. Let us debug this code actually right now. So I'm executing this. Let me run this one. sorry. So before that, I have to call this method actually. I'm not calling it anywhere. Let us close this. Let's go to program, and inside that, at the end of this, let's create an object for employee DB class, employee DB. So let me tell you one more method called static methods. So in C# we can use some static methods, so that method we can call without using the object also. So for using static methods, we have to just put static keyword before the, after the access modifier, we can put the static keyword. So that method, then this method we can call without creating any object. So static methods will be called without creating any object. Let's see, employee DB is our class name. If you just press employee DB dot, this method will be available because it's a static method. Yeah, let's save it. Let's put some debug points here. So here we can put some debug points to debug our code, what's happening inside. And I'll put some debug point inside this while condition so that we can see. Okay. So here if you see, we are just entering into this method. So to go line by line, we have this F10 command, step over. So if you just click on this F10, it will just move to the next statement. And we have initialized the connection string and then the SQL command also. Now we have initialized the connection object. Then we have the command object. We have set the command type. We have opened the connection, and we are just getting the data. Now it's getting the data inside this while loop. Now it will start displaying the data inside this one. See, I got this data 1, funny 1, and then 1000. So here, if you see, this is the data we have here. Now this reader will contain all the data, and if you want to iterate this data, we have to just use the while loop or for loop anywhere, and you have to just use the reader.read method. So if you put inside this while loop, it will keep on iterating this data, incrementing one record, and then it will to read the value, we can just use reader.get value of 0, and we can just see the value of that one. Let us click on continue. So it will display all the data. So at the end of this one, we have to close the connection. Otherwise, the connection will be always open, and it will cause some problems because it will always accept the commands from the outside of the connection, right? So we have to open the connection and we have to close the connection always. Similarly, we are closing this reader object also. See, now we can see the data from the database. This is what the real-time examples will be looking like. So we'll get the data from the database, and we will just dump into the console window, or we will just dump into the Windows application or ASP application, and we just show them. And then we'll perform some add or insert operation. We'll perform some update operation. We will perform delete operation. So those are the minimum things like we will do in the real-time projects. Those are called CRUD operations actually. Let me click on continue. Yeah, so we're able to get the data. So what we have done is, so we have created a connection string that is having the data source. That means it will be having the connection, the server name. So this is my server name, and this is my database name. For that, we have to use initial catalog. This will take the database name, and user ID will take the server like ID, and then for the password we can use the password command. You have to give the password here. So this connection string will be going inside this SQL connection. So once your connection is initialized, we have to provide the command, which command we want to execute for the SQL command, and after that we have to open the command, we have to open the connection. Then we have to read the data by using this command, SQL command, or if you want to insert the data, we have to use execute non-query. If you want to get only one variable from the database, and you have to use execute scalar. If you want to get all the data from the database, then we have to use execute reader method. So once you get the data, we can iterate the data by using while loop, and you can store in some we can display that data into the output, whether it can be console application, it can be ASP application. And at the end of the connection, we have to close the connection also. At the end of the method, we have to close the connection also, so that there will be no interruptions from the other persons, like no one can enter the database. Cool, right? So we have seen how to get the data from the database by using this ADO.NET. Got it? Any questions, guys? Any questions so far? Any questions, guys? So that we can just wrap up the session. As of now, we don't have much time. So I'm not covering the basics of the introduction for ASP.NET. So we don't have that much time to cover this topic also. If you are going to enroll for the advanced topics, then we can cover the ASP.NET topics, everything inside the advanced topics, advanced sessions. So we will have further sessions for advanced topics also. We will plan the sessions for advanced C#, for advanced HTML, for the advanced Bootstrap, the complete session of the Bootstrap we can learn. We can learn complete session of complete C#. We can learn complete ASP.NET applications. We can learn complete SQL Server also. If you want to enroll, we can enroll that. We are planning with that also. Any questions so far? Please raise your hand and you can ask the questions. Okay, so I didn't get any response from you. Okay, so there is no response from you, so we can wrap up this session and chalo, we can end the session. Bye bye. Thank you. If you have any questions, if you just have any questions, I'll just drop my number in this chat window, so you can ask your questions in my WhatsApp also. Okay. That's my WhatsApp number, so you can text me anytime, so I can clear your doubts with respect to HTML or CSS or Bootstrap, C#, anything. You can ask me questions there, and we will grab the session. Hello, bye bye.